Dr. Justin Pate is the president and CEO of Elizabethtown Community and Technical College. Dr. Pate has served as an entrepreneurial leader in 3 of Kentucky's community and technical colleges. At ECTC, he has brought innovative programs and services to the region and has led the college's transition to an 8-week schedule. Most importantly, he has created a culture of partnerships and innovation throughout the college. Even through these changes, the college identified itself as one of Kentucky's best places to work. This cultural change has also led to a positive response to the COVID-19 environment, leading to increased student success even through the pandemic. Would you welcome Justin?
Thank you, Dr. Miles.
I think you have a presentation.
I do. There's good news and bad news. The good news is PowerPoint is only 10 slides long, and the bad news is it takes me about 25 minutes to get through each slide. So just hang in there. No, I was excited to be here with you. I wasn't sure I was going to be able to make it, but things really worked out well. And this work that Jay and Mary and Greg and others are doing, to talk about innovation in higher education is so important. I know it's important to me. I assume it's important to you all. You're here. So it gave me a chance to put something together and really think about how to share the story of what we have done and the kind of journey that we've been on as a college to get to a place to where we are innovative, we are creative, and even entrepreneurial in certain senses of the word. To be here and share some of this journey. We didn't start where we are, I can tell you that. And part of our story really is coming from a place of being very intrinsic. And hearing some of the things the gentleman said there at the last, it is the truth. Higher education has a history, probably, if we're being honest, of we know what's best for you, you come to me and get it. And at one point that's probably true, right? But a lot has changed in the world. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. And Dr. Fox, is there a clicker?
There's not, so I'll be your clicker.
Yes, sir. But if you want to mind, go ahead. We began our journey together as a college, and really with Dr. Moss and several new faces at our system office together to really transform. And even during the interview process, it really came out that the college wanted to change. They wanted to be a little more external focused, and they wanted to not be so siloed, and they wanted to change. Now, everybody I talked to also said, it wasn't their department that needed to change, it was everybody else's. But everybody agreed that we needed change. So, when we started really diving in and looking at what we had there, and I've always been a big culture guy. Culture is important. And I do believe in that old culture eats strategy for breakfast, mentality. So I really delved in and started seeing what kind of culture we had. And the best way that I could put it is that we had a very reactive culture. The culture at our college was very reactive. Oh, enrollment's down this year. I guess we'll have to cut some people. Hey, enrollment's up this year. Let's buy some stuff. That was, but it was even beyond that. The company needed something, we would try to react to that. A student need or environmental element would change, we try to react to that. We weren't driving anything. We were very intrinsically focused. Not being honest, we were the ultimate. We know what is best, and we're going to make ourselves the best we can possibly do. And when you decide you want the best, you come to us. And I think it came from a good place. It was a good place in people's heart, but it just didn't match with the realities of the world. Well, all this mismatch also led us to be financially distressed. College had been losing money, and we had a good fund balance, so we were okay, but that fund balance kept going down each year. Well, all these things, coupled with, I believe Dr. Fox, if you want, we can go to the next slide there. A lot of changes in our environment led to the really, really clear picture of just how bad we need to become more innovative as a college. So when you think about the need for innovation, you know, it wasn't just to change our culture, it wasn't just to get ourselves out of a little bit of financial distress. It was also all these external pressures. You know, think about the changes in the workforce that have occurred over the last 20 years. Now, overlay the changes that have occurred in higher education over the past 20 years, and you can see juxtaposition. Learner needs, expectations. Children are learning in different ways. Social media interaction, this immediacy culture that has been really, really fostered in these last 20, 25 years of immediate response time. You know, Amazon getting delivery down to, I think they're down to what, 30 minutes now? You order something, it's at your door in 30 minutes. That's actually their goal, but yeah, I mean, next day delivery, you know, clicking a button on your phone, you completed your order, you know, the immediacy culture. The need for transparency, right? That's another thing social media has really brought out. You know, we're in a very transparent society that expects transparency from leadership, and it expects now transparency from higher education. These things didn't exist 20 years ago. Legislative scrutiny. It's now okay for legislators to shoot at higher education. For decades and decades and decades, we were pretty well left alone. They didn't come down into our curricular decisions. Well, now, you know, legislative bodies are now taking shots at higher education. There's a lot of differences now that really drive the need for innovation. But, and Dr. Box, you can carry it back, please. Thank you, sir. As I said, this all really led to the need for us to change. The mindset that I adopted was a mindset of innovation. As I really looked at our culture and what we needed to do to become more extrinsically focused, more proactive rather than reactive, it's really that entrepreneurial mindset that we wanted to create there. But when I looked around, I did not see an organizational structure, the right people, the right leadership, the training for all of the employees that was in place to lead to an innovative entrepreneurial culture. So I couldn't just come in and say, hey, let's do this. Don't anybody change a thing, but let's expect some different results just because I've got a PowerPoint. Didn't think that would work. It was actually a lot of really, really hard work to get to the point where people even felt comfortable. Because this is all change. What we're talking about with becoming an innovative entrepreneurial college or unit or business, you know, whatever we're talking about, it's change. If you inherit an organization that is intrinsically focused, reactive, not proactive, there's a lot of change that has to occur to be extrinsically focused, receptive of feedback, and creative and innovative in trying proactive solutions. Because that's another thing we are not very good at in higher education. We are not willing to accept anything less than an A+ and won't go down a path that we don't think is going to lead to an A+. If a lot of our people were about to make a B or a C in a course, they'd drop the course. All right, so they are not comfortable trying something new if there's a chance there might be some failure involved. We better plan until the plan is perfect, and then plan some more, and then send it to committee to evaluate and change the plan so that we can plan a plan that will implement the plan at some point in the future. It's scary. It's scary. So what I really started looking at were traits. And we, in fact, as a system, did some studies on how to build team cultures and essential qualities of the team. You know, the humble, hungry, smart type of mentalities that you look for. Because what we had to have is the people right at the top that would be innovative, creative, not fear failure, encourage innovation, not punish people for failing, you know. So when I looked around the leadership table, I did not see those faces looking back at me. We had to do a lot of changing right at the top. Because I can tell you, no matter how strong your desire to become an innovative entrepreneurial college, if your vice presidents or chief officers are not of the same mind, it won't happen. So we had to do a lot of changing. It wasn't easy. We went through a 2-year period of some really hard conversations, but it paid off in the end because we got people in that were humble, hungry, and smart, and they supported their people to work with other units in the college, external community groups, and to start to learn some of these traits for themselves. So when I was looking for something to share with you all here, and again, these PowerPoints are all online, right? Okay. So all this stuff will be with you, but I was looking for some of those key traits. Well, this is one that I looked at a while back, along with some of the humble, hungry, and smart work that we did there at the system. But these are the kinds of things that I wanted to see in the leadership table around me. Curiosity. All right, with curiosity becomes the willingness to receive information. All right, because the other thing that the Lord blessed us with and cursed us with in ourselves in higher education is we're all intelligent people. And we've probably been right about a lot of things in our lives. And when you're right about enough things for long enough, you become very confident in your rightness. And you become less willing to hear others who are also confident in their rightness, but it leads to a lot of siloing. So I wanted curious people. I wanted people who were genuinely curious, because that's a much easier trait than just willing to listen. So, persistent people, innovative, risk tolerance. We've got to be able to tolerate some risk if we're going to take some chances to do something new. And I'm telling you, if your vice presidents are not risk tolerant, their people will not be either. So there's entire units of the college that just shut down from innovation and entrepreneurial activities. So these are things that we really look for, and we were able to, through some retirements and decisions to work in other places, hire 7 new vice presidents, which I believe, I've lived it, so I want to say that I've got a worthy opinion here. That's the only reason that we've been able to do what we've been able to do in 5 years. Because in the first 2, the entire cabinet changed over. I love those people, nothing against those people, good people, but they just weren't aligned with the direction that we were going to go. So in really just 3 years, we started seeing some big wins and big differences. But Dr. Pate, thank you. I also have to look at myself. I encourage you all to look at yourselves. And if you're wanting to be or to lead an innovative college, it really has to start with you. And some of these qualities from Forbes magazine identified these: vision and dissatisfaction with the present. You've got to have a vision for the future, but you also have to have a dissatisfaction with the present. A lot of us have that. Some of us don't. This may not be too bad, maybe on the right path, but I can tell you I had a very strong dissatisfaction with the present. And so did the college. So we had that motivation there. Taking advantage of advantages. I love this one. I love this one. That was one that really led to some self-discovery with me, because I've not always been the most confident person, athletically, in a room, whatever. I would have one of my high school football coaches say about me. He said I was a little undersized, but I made up for it by being real slow. Truer words were never spoken. Right? Yet, all I needed was an advantage. Give me some advantage out there, and I was not going to lose. I feel the same way today. And that's one of the keys for entrepreneurs. Take advantage of your advantages. Sometimes it's a partnership. Sometimes it's a wrinkle in a rule. All right? Now, I never did that when you were assistant president, though, Dr. Fox. Those kind of things didn't happen. But take advantage of advantages. Flexibility, feedback, persistence, execution. The only one that I added was the very bottom. Because I believe for us, this one's critical to be an innovative, entrepreneurial college in a time when resources are very slim. You've got to be partner-minded. And I think that leads us to the pathways to a lot of these innovations. And I'll give you a little case study at the end if we've got time. But these are all things that we've got to look inward as we're also building our leadership teams and moving forward. But I think it's all leading to being an entrepreneurial college. Next slide, please. Thank you, sir. So when I was thinking about traits that allowed us to, in a very short period of time, really change our mindset, you know, it was about changing some leadership. We have been fortunate to be able to hire some good people, but you know, it's that we truly are proactive. We are picking a direction. In fact, one of our goals is to be a regional leader for cultural development, for workforce, for economic diversity. All right, you talk about setting a lofty goal. You know, we put it out there that we want to be the catalyst for economic diversity within our region. We're a heavy manufacturing region, and that manufacturing is pretty much focused on automotive industry. Now, it's not a bad place to be, but we have very little diversification. Now, myself, I'm from eastern Kentucky, southeastern Kentucky in particular, and we had zero economic diversity. All of our economic eggs were in the coal basket. And that was never going to go away. So we've decided as a college, we want to be a catalyst for economic diversity. We've already started generating a little interest in the IT world because of some of the things that we have implemented, like the Coding Academy we'll talk about in a little bit. But these are all goals, you know, and so proactive, externally focused, great teamwork. So talk about a culture change. We would look at who we were going to hire and rank them based on credentials. That's how we hired. We want to hire the most credentialed person we could possibly hire for that position. Now, credentials are about the fourth thing that we look at. As long as they are qualified for the job and they meet the minimum, we're going to look at talent, teamwork, and somewhere down the line, credentials. Not even all that worried about experience. So our operating system is called Peoplesoft. I always think about this ad when I think about need, because hiring is the key. Hiring, everything you do is hiring's number one. I know you know that. But here's an ad that we put out once at a college I was at previously. We're hiring a spot for student services. It was on the front line, student affairs type of workers. And in the ad it said, Peoplesoft experience a must. I said, really? Did we just eliminate 99.9% of the population right off the bat? If you can't log in to Peoplesoft and know what those is, then we don't want you. Yeah, we need somebody who can come in and hit the ground running. Well, good luck. Because the only one you're going to get is the one that got fired from the other job they had in Peoplesoft and can't get anywhere else. But they got Peoplesoft experience, so we're going to get them. You know, we've got to be a little more forward thinking than that. We have to drive that. Right? Because I promise you, hiring committees don't do it on their own. So I did not let a single hiring committee go without talking to them. And we talked about, you know, who you want to work with. Who you want to go down this journey with us. We're going to hire somebody talented with no experience in higher education, or we're going to hire average with experience. And I'll tell you which one will pay off better in 2 years. And they all get it. And we have done some a great job hiring folks, but we got to do it. And the last thing that I've really tried to establish is that ready, fire, aim concept. Y'all heard of that one? Kind of came from a guy by the name of Ross Perot. Y'all remember Ross Perot? Yeah, everybody remembers him as a failed presidential candidate, but the man really was a great business leader. And he had built this company. It was Data Innovation. I can't remember the name of it, but Data Systems. That's right. And sucker took off, doing great. And I think it was GE or GM that bought it. I can't remember. Anyway, 2 years later, Data Systems was just tanking. So people ask, you know, hey, Ross, what's the difference? How did you take this thing to be a skyrocket and it went to GM and it just floundered? And he said, well, that's simple. I always fight myself not to do my Ross Perot imitation right here. I'll spare you all that. But he said, well, simple. He said, my philosophy was ready, fire, aim. We're going to go out, we're going to try something. If it fails, all right, we'll aim better next time. But let's get it. Let's go learn. Let's do. Let's get after it. He said, GM, their philosophy was ready, aim, 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 aim. They never fired. Which one sounds more like higher education? All right. So So we had to change that a little bit. And I just constantly encourage people, go out, fail, learn, we'll get better. There's no more tests, there's no more grades. This is us, let's do it. So about the third conversation I had with the college was, don't be afraid to fail. Get out there, let's learn, let's do with each other, fail together, fail fast, and we'll learn. But those conversations are tough. I mean, people have to learn to do that. But it's integral. If you want to be an innovative college, it's integral to build that kind of nimbleness within the organization. And I apologize, I think I tried to get fancy and do one of those animation things with this one. If you want to click until it's filled up, you can go right ahead. It's
I
really...
appreciate you ready to fire a game on learning how to use PowerPoint.
Well, it's cool when you got one of those clickers. You look like you know you're really something, because you finish talking about one, you can click your little button and it pops right up. When it first came out, I used to tell people I had it on a timer and I was that good. Nobody believed me, by the way, but it's all right. But the things that as I've reflected on our journey and where we are and where we're going, these are the things that have really mattered. And you know, really identifying those traits that you want to have as a college and then hiring for those traits. That's paramount. You know, you can't hire intrinsic people and expect to be an extrinsic college. You can't hire static people and expect to be a dynamic college. You know, these things take time for sure, but these are the things that have to be intentionally built within a culture. And you know, training for it. That's something we continue to do. And it's hard, because there's 16 things that we need to train for, and only about 2 PD days built into the schedule, you know. So by the time you look at diversity, equity, inclusion, which is number 1 in our training this year, you look at safety, which is number 2, and then you look at all the other initiatives with the QEP and all these other things that we've got, active learning, competency-based education, you know, whatever, we've got all this stuff out there. But we also have to take time to train people to be innovative, or they won't be. So we do. And the last point up here has always been the first thing that I think about every time I talk to the college. Small groups, large group, whatever it is. They want change, but nobody will take it upon themselves. They have to be led for change. Leading change is not easy. So I developed a long time ago kind of this 3-pronged approach that I always take to change. Small change, big change, individual change, organizational change, whatever it is. These are the 3 things that I talk about. Next slide, please. Now, I always call it the Trinity of Change. I keep this in my head every time I'm talking to the college about where we're going and what we're doing. And I always start with why the change is necessary. So the 3 components are: why is the change necessary? Why will the proposed change be better? And number 3, what does it mean for the individual? And what happens most often is we just skip by this first one because we get so close to it. You know, we see the reports, we get the data, we talk to the business team, we hear from the community members, we hear it 16 times that a change is necessary, so we get it. And then we start looking for what is better. And then we get so focused on that what is better, we forget that everybody else doesn't know that we need to change. So we start talking to them about where we're going, or this new program, or this new partnership, or this new thing. But unless they really realize that what we're doing isn't working, it's too powerful to overcome. Comfort zones are a powerful thing, we know that. So always keep in mind, the first step in the Trinity is why the change is needed. Even though that college, even in the interview process, I mean, you know how it is when you're interviewing for these jobs, you do these mass things, and you're in these public forums and faculty forums. We need to change, we gotta change, we gotta change, we gotta change. Even though the college knew it, they didn't know what particularly. They didn't know why what they were doing wasn't working. They just knew it wasn't working because they looked around and they saw their teammates every year. Saw enrollment going down. They didn't know particularly what needed to change. So we had to start there. Then we moved into what proposed change is and then what it meant for the individuals. Without that last piece, they can understand why it's necessary. They can understand why it's better. But if they think it's going to make them irrelevant, they're not going to help you get there. So those are the three pieces that I continually come back to. It's also actually a really good set of checks and balances for me. Because if I can't explain all three components, then maybe I don't need to be driving that particular change. If I can't tell them why we need to change, then what are we doing it for? If I can't tell them why a proposed change will be better, then how do I know that one's the path we need to be going down? And if I can't tell them what it means for them individually, then I need to do a little more research because I can't leave the people behind. So this Trinity has really worked well for me. The one example, the kind of case study that I'll give you is this, and let's go to 320, is that right? Okay. Is that clock accurate?
Yes.
Yes.
For free.
Okay, I just want to make sure, because I felt like the last 4 times I looked up, it had been 2:55, and I thought, wait a minute, I've been down this road before. Is it one of those clocks that's right twice a day? I'm not sure what's going on there, but so the case study I'll kind of share with you is this coding academy that we built at the college. And the college had never promoted a non-credit program past what we might put in the workforce solutions brochure that we didn't even really put online ever, that I had heard about. So this was actually a pretty big deal because we developed this 17-week academy to hit those Java skills that the world needs so badly. Well, we happen to be in the back door of Fort Knox in central Kentucky. And Fort Knox is not just Gold Vault, so everybody knows that, but they still haven't let me see that, by the way. I think it's my accent, not the box. But they're also the Army's HR headquarters. So every mission that flows through the U.S. Army gets coded at the HR command. Well, they were having a critical workforce shortage there. And they were having to fly people in from all parts of the country to do these jobs. So we were brainstorming one day of what could be done. Because I'm like most everybody I would have guessed in this room, you can pour what I know about Java and coding in a thing. Right. That's not my world. So as I started learning, what I learned was our 2-year IT degrees do not meet that need. In fact, the 4-year IT degrees do not meet that need because those degrees are very broad and not very deep when it comes to content. What Java coders need is about this much breadth of content, but this much depth. So the best way to do that is an intense academy. You can't do it on the credit hour. Can't get enough credit hours into the Java training to give a credential for it. So we did non-credit. All right, well that caused a little rumbling. All right, so we really had to get on board up front, explain to the IT faculty, to get them to understand, who then explained to their division, and leadership and faculty at large, and when we started going down this path. But then hold the phone. We can't charge or we can't receive financial aid for this. Scrap it, do away. No, we got to try, all right? We got to find these external funding sources. We got to develop some partnerships. Don't get an answer and immediately shut down with no. This is too important. Remember, now here's where we always talk about mission and strategic planning. One of our strategic plan goals is to be an economic diversifier in our region. Right? Not to even mention meeting the needs of a severely important employer in our region. Right? So let's give this a try. So we did. We busted through those barriers. Here's the next thing that I did not realize. Can't remember if I told you this or not. you gotta pay about $250,000 a year for someone who can teach Java. I didn't know that.
Gosh, that's almost your salary.
You know what? If I didn't have to take a pay cut, I probably would have done it. $250,000 a year, average. We ended up having to pay $320,000. Our profit margin, because trust me, I was seeing dollar signs when we were talking about scoping all this out. We did the first cohort at a severely discounted rate. We got a grant to help us offset that, but it takes about $10,000 to $12,000 per participant to get this training. I couldn't figure out why. You know, I've done the math. I put together posts. I even put in this astronomical figure of $95,000 for the instructor, just in case we had to pay that much. So yeah, when I got to the bottom line of what we would be making in years 2 and 3, I thought, we're gonna run the college off this sucker. Yeah, well, that margin was about $230,000 that we were gonna make a year off this coding academy. The difference between the $90,000 salary and the $320,000 salary we ended up having to pay was about $230,000. So we make zilch off of the coding academy. Luckily, we lose zilch off the coding academy, so everything's good because we're meeting that demand, meeting that need. But we also gotten tons of press off of this thing in our local community, even statewide, even in DC, as people have gone and talked about it. So we garnered a lot of goodwill, but we also got a win. And the college saw a win from being a little innovative, entrepreneurial. So the next thing I know, some more people want to come. So we've encouraged, we've created an entrepreneurial pot of money for mini grants. And we now have gen ed faculty who are wanting to make innovative classrooms, do all these things. And so yes, we fund that. We fund that. Now that person takes that money and it doesn't really change much, but the classroom looks different. There's a little more technology in it. And they've got furniture that moves. And now students are wanting to sign up for that class. That drove that person to teach just a little bit different. I can get you active in this class now, so let's get a little active learning going. That was a win. Now other people have seen that. They want to do that. It's little seeds, but it's a culture changing process. Step by step, little by little. And as long as we're staying focused on that and intentionally building that, we're going to keep getting some wins from it. But I believe this is the last slide in the presentation, other than this one last one. But it's really the things we've been talking about. These are some examples. Other wins that we've gotten, customized business training that didn't exist prior, acceptance of credit for prior learning, even in some of the gen ed communities, which is huge. Programs have been developed, and then to me, the number one example that told me that, you know, what we actually had changed some culture here is in the middle of the pandemic, and we started this work long before, all right, long before we started talking about the 8-week course schedule. We actually made that switch for this fall. This is the first semester we've done the 8-week schedule. And so that schedule had to be built last year. So in the dead middle of the pandemic, our faculty were working on changing their classes and building a schedule for 8 weeks. And very little rioting outside my office. So that told me, you know what we're doing is working. And this was not a college that would have done that 5 years ago. Would not have happened. But the leadership, the hiring, the training, the cultural wins along the way, we were identified as the best place to work. They had even quit doing the best place to work survey long ago. They said, you know, we're not going to do this anymore because they couldn't get it. People will change. They will embrace these notions, but they have to understand it. They have to get the wins. They have to have time with you. They have to know what it is that's on your mind and the why behind it all. But they will, and we've done it. We've been very fortunate and blessed to have some good people, a lot of good people in our entire system. How many of you all are part of systems? Oh, wow. Very cool. There's a lot of benefit to being a system. And I think the knowledge base and the ability to bounce ideas off of other presidents, you know, that's, it's the great thing about being a system, you're not competitors, you know, with all of your colleagues, and, or always anyway. I guess it's a little different when you're the best in the system, you know. But, so, a little time for some questions. Anything that you all would like to know about this journey or my experience? And that's all I want to do, is just share the experience. Nothing I've done is the way to do it or necessarily the right thing, but this is what worked for us. And these are the things that I focused on as we were trying to get to this place. Questions or comments? Yes, ma'am.
So as you implement your Trinity, what ways did you do that? I mean, was it written? Did you have meetings with you? I mean, in what ways did you go through those steps?
A whole lot of the, you know, tell them 5 times mentality. You know, and small group and large group, one-on-one with, so for the 8-week schedule, that was the one that may be a better case study even than the coding academy. Gosh, I believe it was around my 2nd year we started talking about that. So, I mean, it was truly a 2.5, 3-year process from the first conversation I had at the college to the point where I stood in front of them and told them we were going to do this. You know, because up to that point, it was just exploration. I told them, you know, so what I did, I went to the 3 most influential people who I knew would be dead set against this. And I told them what I was thinking about. And I asked them, I said, don't go out and spread this. So I'm not at that point. So I've just been looking at data. I said, but do me a favor. Go out and find research that says we shouldn't do this. So they gladly accepted, and to a person came back 2-3 weeks, whatever I gave them later, and said, I just want you to know I am dead set against this, and I can't find a reason in the world that we shouldn't do it, so you probably ought to proceed.
Then you had to get to here. With those 3, you had to get to there.
Big time. Big time. So then went to a little bit larger group, actually went to the division chairs of the faculty, got them involved. Which, by the way, strategically, one of the 3 that were adamantly opposed was a division chair. So that person now went into that meeting already knowing he couldn't shoot it down. From that point, got the faculty engaged and the college engaged in the exploration. And here was another important thing that gave me some credibility. I told them we were going to explore this for a year. And we truly explored it for a year. And it gave everybody time to discover why that change was necessary. Actually, I also brought some people in from our system office of research and policy analysis to show the college that despite our innate belief that we were truly the best college in the world, our retention, graduation, and success rates were actually all in the bottom quartile of KCTCS colleges, not the nation, but just even in our back door. So that started highlighting the need that, oh, there is something going on here. Oh, this could be better. So by the time I got to the point where I looked them in the eyes and said, you know, I'm gonna make this decision before we leave this semester, and made that decision, they understood. And then we took the next year to get to this point. So basically made the decision at the end of this year, going through this year for this year. So we allowed time. But it took about 3 years.
So Justin, I want to ask the group a few questions, because you've got some representatives from Ivy Tech here, and you heard that you got people from systems.
Yes, sir.
Which is very important. First question I have for you is, how many of you have been in your role as president for 5 years or more? Okay, a couple. How many have been in your role for 3 years or less? Okay, yeah.
You must be 4.
Good man. I also don't know.
Okay.
I don't know.
When was the
You were in the first group with us.
So-
Hi, Kim. Sorry. We had this weird structure, so I wasn't, never
Yeah.
to count.
It's an understatement.
Okay.
It's complicated.
All of
Campus
you,
presidents, yeah.
all of you realized, those of you who've only been presidents for a short time, you realized that probably you need to make some changes, right? You heard him talk about the importance of building your team. Those of you who have been presidents for a while, you've either built your team or your team is getting stale and you probably need to refresh it, one of the others.
You just said a mouthful.
But
Just come tell us soon, we're refreshing.
But let me tell you how important your team, your leadership team is to your institution. If you're going to be a transformational president and you're going to move it forward, you cannot do it with leaders that report to you that are constantly putting up roadblocks.
Yep.
That does not mean you don't want them to always play devil's advocate with you, because you do want that. But once a decision is made, they have to be your rah-rah person and get there with you as quickly as possible. I was KCTCS president for just about 6 years. In that 6 years, I hired 15 new presidents out of the 16 colleges. 15. Most of that was due to a tired group of presidents who had been on board for 15 or 18 years in the system, and they were tired and they really weren't ready to get going again. And it was important for me to find this kind of leader, someone who was a risk taker and willing to bring about change, because our system had gotten stale and it needed refreshing. And you saw some of the data that was shown by CPE today that showed in those few years that we moved the needle. We got some more access and success with the students, and especially of our diverse population, which was critical for us to start focusing on diversity and equity and inclusion. So what I'm telling you is, you take a good look at your leadership team. If you're going to be trying to transform and be more entrepreneurial and be more innovative, you've got to find a way to get your leadership team to be there with you. That's a critical factor. And this guy has done it at his institution, and it has made a tremendous difference. He is being way too humble about this whole situation. Elizabethtown Community and Technical College, of the 16 colleges of KCTCS, was known as our institution who did not want to change at all. They had a faculty that was set in their ways and was not going to change. It was just not going to be. We're as fine as what we need to be, and we don't need to be anything different. This change maker came in and said, let me tell you why the change is necessary. Let me bring in the data and show you. Let us show you what's going on across KCTCS. And you think we're the best within KCTCS? He quickly showed them we weren't. And then he turned it around and said, it's not about the institution as much as it is about the students. Because he's got a really good student background, and he turned it around to focus on the student piece of it. Why we need to change the most is because we're not getting the students into the universities they want to go to. We're not getting them into the jobs they want to go to. And that coding academy was a prime example of providing students into a career that was a very high-paying career for those students, even though it cost the institution money, and he got a lot of pushback from his IT faculty because that's not what they need. They need an associate degree. No, they didn't need an associate. So it was a very good lesson. Anyway, you can see why I think the world of Justin Pate, and I hope you enjoyed his presentation. Let's give him a big round of applause.
I'm gonna say one more thing, and I would say it even if it wasn't in the room, but you have to know yourself and some of your limitations. I'm one that would run in and clear the room, all right? If I don't believe you're right for the job and you have demonstrated to me that you are not going to get any better, you know, I'm done. We're moving on. I'm that way in a lot of things. I'll try this thing. I needed somebody to be a sounding board for me. Okay? Somebody to not necessarily temper myself, but to make sure I'm running in the right direction. All right? Well, Dr. Box was that for me. You know, he had been a president in the system. He had been the president of the system, but he's very wise. You've got to find somebody who can give you that perspective. And that's very important too. You know, you need mentors, you need sounding boards, but you need people who have been there, done that to help you. So I really encourage you all, if you don't have someone, to find that person who's unobjective. And even though he was my boss, I knew he was. He would advise me. He always told me, you know, I will support you. You're going to make mistakes. I'll try to help you avoid as many as I can, but you'll make them and I'll help you. Right? And that was important to me. Right? Don't fear failure, basically. And he would tell me, you know, if you get yourself up a tree, I'll go up there with you. If you go out on a limb, I'll get out there with you. But if you pull out a saw, I'm getting down. So I knew there was boundaries, but it was great. We had a great time doing what we've done. I appreciate you.
Thanks, folks. We're on break till 3:30, and then get back in for our final keynote this afternoon. Thank you for sticking with us today. I know it's tough when you're president. You got a lot of things hitting you on all the time, and thank you for sticking with us. And we'll be back inside in the auditorium.
Appreciate you all.